All right, going live.
Okay.
Yay, we're on live.
What do you know? Now it's working.
Now it's working.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll just make a quick intro to my channel. Hey guys, welcome for another live stream. I am joined today with Rick. So Rick has been a very interesting character. He's popped out of YouTube. Was it Bart K's videos that you first
No, it
started
was
talking about your
actually
carnivore?
Joey Schwartz was the first one, and then Barkay was I think number two or three.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's you know what? I've been following you pretty much since I first heard of you on YouTube, and of course, the big catch is you are one of those people who've done the carnivore diet for, geez, decades. At that time, probably I think it was 39 years, and you've reached the 40-year mark apparently. So,
Yeah,
congratulations.
August is my 40 years. So I said like August 15th that I started 40 years ago in 1983, but actually it's still another 7 months because I did a vegetarian diet in 93. But I did start the carnivore diet 40 years ago. But you'd have to wait
Jeez.
7 more months to have a total of 40 years carnivore.
Wow. Well, technically speaking, it is you still reached the 40 year. Yeah.
Except
Um,
I didn't even know it was a carnivore diet until 2020. I used to call it the heart attack diet.
the heart attack diet. Yes,
That's
love it,
right.
love it. Yeah, and I've heard you use that countless times. But yeah, Rick, thank you for coming on my channel, and you're someone who's been very supportive within the community. I see you, obviously, with your videos and your posts that you make, but also just commenting and supporting everyone else in this small community we have. It's amazing. So thanks for what you do.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad that I'm not the only one anymore.
Hey, well, Rick, why don't you tell us what happened? What happened 40 years ago? What started you on this pathway in, what might have been considered to be a one-way ticket to heart attack?
Well, as you probably, since you've seen my story, you know that it started with frustration and rebellion. I was extremely sick of being so skinny and being short, and the girls were bigger than me, and I had elementary school wasn't so great. Junior high was absolutely terrible, and then by high school I was just like, oh, I don't want to go to high school because I could imagine something would be like the Revenge of the Nerds, and all the jocks would be picking on me, and my life would be a living disaster. So I thought, you know what? I was regretting it, and then that summer I fell through the roof helping my dad build a carport. I broke my arm. I was stuck in the house. My parents were working, and I had nothing to really eat. So I thought, hey, it'd be nice to have something easy, something I like to eat. And I started with a meat-based diet. I didn't want to deal with stuff like spaghetti or vegetables or any of the other nasty stuff. So I said, hey, eating
Mm.
meat's fine with me. And that's when I started it. And then, of course, I was told, hey, this is a dangerous diet. You're going to get a heart attack. It's going to kill you. You're going to get colon cancer. I thought,
Yeah.
well, colon cancer will take a long time. Maybe a heart attack, that'll come pretty quick. So I
Mm.
thought, hey, heart attack could be fun. I wouldn't have to go to school. I could stay home. So it was kind of a win-win situation.
Nice. Um, with when you first started it, what did what did people around you think?
Well, my parents were the ones that thought I was nuts. Nobody else really cared because I don't think too many people even knew about it. The only
Yeah.
way they would know is the rare occasion when we went to eat at somebody's house, and I got accused of being the picky one, the one that doesn't eat anything. Um,
Mm.
that's just that's just the way that I was, and I had a reputation for being fussy, but hey, that's what can you do, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hey Rick, I'm getting a bit of feedback and echo from your end, so I think it's what I'll try and do. I'll see if I can if I mute your microphone while I'm talking, it stops. So and if I unmute it, it comes back on. So I think it's to do with, yeah. I think uh, the sound is feeding back into your microphone.
Probably,
So
yeah.
so what I'll do is I might just hit mute on you while I'm talking, and then unmute it when you're back on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So hey, it started off as a bit of a rebellious thing, um, and you know, your parents didn't think, you know, thought you were a bit crazy for it. What sort of happened once you know, um, started eating just meat? Did you start to put on a bit of muscle? Started to put on a bit of weight? And sort of how were you feeling?
Um, I never really, I never really put on any muscle. I was always skinny. I'm skinny to this day. I don't have any kind of muscle mass.
Yeah.
But what had happened to me is that my attitude changed. I didn't really worry about things like I used to.
Mm.
It just was one of those. Um, I felt more relaxed. And then after like the first year, that's when I really started to grow. I never really noticed it. It's just that my parents were telling me, you're getting pretty big. And when I was in school, I was in high school, I'd look down the hallway and used to have to look up, but then I was starting to see kind of eye to eye. And really, it was more of a height thing. And I never really paid much attention because muscle mass was just not, it wasn't coming on, but definitely height. That's what was coming on.
Right. 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 So when you so has your diet remained unchanged, apart from the stint of vegetarianism that you said you've done?
More or less, it's
Mm.
basically a beef-based diet. If I can have steak, I have steak. If I can't afford steak, I get ground meat, and then I also eat other things like chicken and pork and local meats like duck and iguana. So, but it's basically been the same. And at one time, I was eating a dozen eggs a day. Now I eat about six. So it's been pretty constant. I make my own yogurt, and I do eat cheese. So I haven't drank milk since probably I was 20 years old. So when I first started the diet, I was still drinking milk. But after that, I gave up milk as well. I just didn't. I thought it was the wrong thing to do anyway. I thought, hey, I'm already growing up. I don't need milk anymore. Solid foods for adults and milks for babies. But other than that, it's been pretty much the same diet.
Right, right, right. And so, you know, as you started growing up, and obviously you would have heard the sort of advice, or you know, the kind of things that are being told to people about, you know, cholesterol, and you know, eating meat is bad for you, causes cancer. Did any of that kind of put you off? Uh, you know, continuing the diet?
Um, Not really. It was kind of interesting because I remember all too well. They had.
Mm.
I remember one time we went to the supermarket, and I think it was either Publix or Great Value or one of those stores, and I saw Time magazine. You know how these have the magazines by the checkout, and it had a like a it was a dish with a couple of eyes. There were eggs for eyes and a bacon frowning and whatever, and then it said the bad news about cholesterol. And I remember my dad showing me, oh, look at that. That's very bad because at the time I was having bacon and eggs for breakfast or steak and eggs. So yeah, and I heard that many times. And then of course all the commercials for fat free and low fat and all this other nastiness, the Wesson oil, and then even those stupid non-stick pans where you don't have to put any lard or butter on them. And I just thought the whole thing was kind of silly, you know. But the thing is, by that time, by about 1984, I had already been on the diet for almost a year, and I was just starting to get, I don't know, my attitude changed. I thought it was kind of funny because people still had bad habits. There was still a lot of people out there smoking and drinking, and I thought, these people do stupid things when they're young. What's going to happen? And even my dad, he started to say, well, he's young. It's not really going to hurt him. And then the fact, after a couple of years starting to grow, it just, there was no way that I was going to give up the meat-based diet. I felt good about it, and it was doing good for me. So why would I change it? I figured, hey, I'd rather die of a heart attack in strong, healthy condition than living to be one of these people you see in the nursing home who can't wipe
Mm-mm.
their own rear end, and they have to urinate in the diaper. I didn't want to be like that. I thought, you know what, it'd be better to just croak and get it over with and be done with it.
Well, that's an awesome mentality, man. Because you know what, like because you started off, well, what I think anyway, because you started off so young down the piece that you know you kind of felt great on the diet to begin with, so there wasn't really much to compare with, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
That's right. I agree 100%. And the thing is, the other kids were still bigger, and I actually made friends with some of these kids that were into bodybuilding, and they were all
Mm,
massive compared to me. I was a skinny thing. But the funny thing that they always told me is, Rick, for as skinny as you are, you're very strong. Because I could, like, when I was working on my car, I'd pick up the transmission, and I'd cut tree branches and do a lot of physical work, which I do to this day. It's like
mm,
today I had to haul off a recliner. I just picked up the recliner and carried it out the door. Oh, you need help? You need help? No, I can do it myself, no problem. And then the other thing is, at my age, as tall as I am, because I'm skinny, they say, "Oh, what
mm,
about your back?" I'm like, "My back? I never had a back problem." You know, the worst thing that ever happened to me is I get like sort of sore when I did a lot of work, but I never really got tired. It took a lot to make me have to be breathing hard. I mean, and our humidity here is really bad. So you
right.
go out there and do some work, and you got heat index of 110, 120 degrees, and other than sweating a lot, they don't really seem to get worn out. So yeah, I mean, maybe the meat-based diet is deadly, and maybe it's going to kill me. But I just thought, hey, as long as I'm feeling good, it can't be all that bad.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and of course, you weren't a fan of vegetables or carbohydrates ever growing up.
Oh, I was fed a lot of vegetables and carbohydrates, before I started the carnivore diet. I mean,
Mm.
my day normally started with oatmeal with brown sugar on it. And if I was lucky, I'd get an egg to go with it. Now, my parents did give me vitamins, and they gave me cod liver oil to go with the cereal. But, you know, whenever I'd have breakfast, I would eat the egg instantly. As soon as the egg was ready, I'd gobble that up. But man, getting down
Wow.
that oatmeal was really bad. And the brown sugar only made it worse. I hated that stuff because they put the
Wow.
oatmeal in the pot, whatever and then they dump it in the dish, and then they put brown sugar on top. The brown sugar would melt on top of it, and it made this kind of nasty looking, I don't know, brown crap. It looked like something that came out of the rear end of a duck, and it tasted even worse. It was just absolutely disgusting. I hated it. Once in a while I get some bacon. That was always a treat because I thought, man, instead of that nasty brown sugar, I get something with bacon. So, yeah, I would have that. And then other thing they'd have is this nasty cream of wheat with some kind of white paste. It looked like something that you use in art class. It was actually quite bad. And then they'd put, sugar on that or whatever to make it taste better. Ew, it was really bad. And then once in a while we'd have cornflakes, which was like the worst. I hate cornflakes. Between the cornflakes and the corn chips that I'd sometimes have for lunch,
Mm.
although I did like the Frito Bandito commercials, the Fritos corn chips, nasty. So yeah, that that it was a lot of carbohydrates. And the only
Yeah.
carbohydrates I actually liked is once in a while we get some plantain chips, and I love the
Oh,
plantain chips.
plantain chips.
Yeah,
Yum.
they're
Mm.
good. They had
Yeah.
salt on them. They're very tasty. But back then, the plantain chips, they were actually cooked in some kind of, it said rendered beef fat. So we have
Oh,
a
right.
local company. I can't remember the name of the company, but it came in a green bag, and it tasted really good. They weren't the little chips; they were like strips, and they fry them, and it said rendered beef fat. So that was probably beef tallow for all we know,
Mm, mm.
and they were very very good. But that was the only carbohydrate I ever liked. I never liked bread. Bread just didn't
Wow,
it didn't
really?
excite me. And
Right.
cooked carrots would make me vomit. They were nasty. Oh, I couldn't stand those things. It's a good thing that I had ducks in the neighborhood. Otherwise, I would never have gotten away with dumping that stuff out.
That's so interesting because yeah, growing up I loved carbohydrates. I mean, I was a big carb addict, but I can't ever remember when I first started liking carbs. Um but even I've got kids of my own now, and you know uh, I've noticed that if once you start to introduce carbohydrates or sugars into someone's diet, they just they either get hooked, or they don't like it. But the more you keep on sort of giving it to them, the more they get conditioned into you know liking it. So my sorry, my daughter actually, I started her off eating a carnivore diet, but once she started going into daycare, and started introducing all these foods, all these carbs and sugars, then she started to get hooked onto those things. But glad for you that you never really liked it, ever growing up. So that's good. And hey, I got my first question here from former fat girl. So Nicole's online. So hey, Nicole, I'll show the question here. So if you both could eat one carnivore meal for the rest of your life, what would it be? I'll let you go first, Rick.
That's easy. I would have T-bone steak all the time, just T-bone steak day and night.
Right, T-bone steak, huh?
I love
Um,
T-bone steak.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's delicious.
All right. For me, Nicole, you know what? I'm a big fan of the rump cap or the picanha steak. That's my favorite. So that's something I could eat for the rest of my life. Mm, yeah. But a great question. Love it. So I've got another one, Rick. So you said you did a brief stint of being a vegetarian, right?
Yes, I
Uh,
did.
when was that along the piece of your carnivore
It
journey?
was it was in 1993. We had Hurricane Andrew in '92, and that was at the end of August. And I ate nothing but meat from August all the way. I mean, I don't even think I had eggs. I think it was just meat, 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 because there was so much of it. So many
Mm,
people were going to throw out their meat because it was going to go bad, and I was the only one that had a working refrigerator because I had built a wood gas generator, so I had unlimited fuel, and I was able to keep the meat nice and cold. So I had some of the. I never in my life had I had filet mignon and ribeye steak and all that really delicious, tasty meat. So I just started eating nothing but meat because we couldn't even get vegetables. There was no power here, and a lot of the grocery stores were destroyed, and all the fruit
mm,
in the yard was wiped out. The hurricane just stripped everything. So there were no fruits and vegetables available. So I ate nothing but meat. Before that, even though I was on the carnivore diet, I mean, I did
mm.
have dairy and I did have some fruits and vegetables from time to time. But once I hit that phase, it was just meat the whole time. And
Right.
then I got scared. This one girl that I knew that was, I think she was trying to date me or something, but she was trying to convince me that I was just going to ruin my life, and that all my problems were coming from eating nothing but meat. So, and finally, I got tired of it. I just got to the point where I said, you know what, next year, when I run out of meat, I'm going to go on a vegetarian diet. That's what I did. And when I first started the diet, I felt really good. So everything was doing well. I was happy. But then by March, things started to go downhill. And I started having problems. I had a lot of gas. I had diarrhea. And I get pains. Sometimes when it was time to eat, I get pains. And then I used to get really hungry, which was very, very unusual for me because normally I'm just like
Mm,
you put fuel in the truck and it keeps running, even if the thing's running near empty, you know, I mean, eventually I'll run out of energy and stall. But when you're on that vegetarian diet, you got to keep eating because
right. Mm,
you have breakfast, which at the time was oatmeal and some nasty veggies. And by lunchtime, you're looking at the clock. It's like, man, 11 o'clock, and my stomach hurts, and I feel bad, and then you got to think about what you're going to have, and
Mm.
then the other problem is there's so many foods I can't eat, nasty beans and disgusting tofu and all this other sickening, nasty garbage, and then everything's got vegetable oil in it, and it's just really bad. So, and I tried a lot of different things. I was eating some plantains as part of the vegetarian diet. I ate a lot of fruit. The fruit didn't really bother me, but when I started hitting the broccoli and the cauliflower and the Brussels sprouts, that was just terrible. The pain that it gives you, you eat Brussels sprouts for lunch, and by 3 o'clock, you got stomach pains, and then comes the gas. And let me tell you, that gas is some nasty. It's like a dumpster, but worse. It's like a dead animal in a dumpster. It's horrible. The smell. Oh,
Oh man.
it's you get in the elevator and you got that gas building up, and boy, you better hope you get to the floor you're on. Because I
Yeah,
remember I
yeah.
was trying to go in the courthouse one time. I was going to fight a ticket. I forget what it was, and I was over there in the courthouse, and it was taking forever, and the pressure was building, and finally I had to let it go, and it was really bad. I think even the cop in the elevator, they all had to get out. It was terrible. And it only got worse from that point. It was nasty. I just thought, man, why am I doing this to myself?
So what was the breaking point? What made you just say no? I'm not doing this.
July of '93, I got a really bad flu, and I wasn't able to eat. And that's really unusual for me. For at
Mm.
least 3, 4 days, I couldn't eat a single thing, and it was really bad. And everything I tried to eat rice, and that didn't agree with me. I remember eating some rice with some, just a little bit of milk to make it go down, and it was bad. And all those nasty juices, my dad kept having me take different veggie juices and fruit juices, and it was just, ugh, and then when I got that flu, I just couldn't eat anything. And when I finally got to the point, because every time I tried to get up and go to the bathroom, I was dizzy and I was throwing up. And even when I had no food in my system, I was still trying to throw up. It
Mm.
wasn't until finally I was able to go outside and not throw up. And then I started thinking about food. And I remember the first thing I ate was eggs, and I got them from the
Mm.
front yard. So, that was after eating the eggs, I felt so much better. And I think after that, I was craving meat. And I remember, later on that day, I had enough energy. I got my car, I drove to the Winn Dixie, and I got some ground meat. It was less than like 60 cents a pound marked down. And boy, I started making ground beef. And after that, I felt better day by day,
Wow. Just like that, huh?
just
And,
like
and you
that.
and again, you've not looked back since then.
You what?
You've not looked back and just kept going with this meat diet
Yeah,
again. Mm.
after that, there was no turning me back to a vegetarian diet.
Mm.
I couldn't. It's just one of those things. I tried it, it didn't work for me. And I started off as vegetarian. I was still eating some dairy and fish. I went to completely plant-based, and it just got worse. And then on
Mm.
top of that, I was losing weight. And the worst part is, it wasn't so much that I was losing weight. I had no energy. My strength went.
Mm. Yeah.
I remember at that time I was working mostly in IT. I was working inside, and we had some servers that were delivered, and I went to the office and I tried to pick up the box. I walked maybe 20 feet, and then I had to set it down. I just didn't feel right, and then
Yeah.
I couldn't handle when there was a problem. I started blowing up. I had a couple of meltdowns, and it just didn't work for me. I couldn't deal with it. I thought, why am I going to go back to this? I'm just going to keep eating the meat, and who cares if I get a heart attack? At least I can still get my job done. I feel better. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy, right? Because you know what? I also did a short stint of vegetarianism and sort of went vegan. And this was at a time when I had a close family member who had a who had a cardiac arrest, and basically, that put the fear of God in me, and so I was gonna be a good boy and follow, the advice of what all the doctors say, eat a heavy plant based diet, and I did, and for that month, and oh God, that month, you know. I didn't feel any better. I didn't feel great. The gas, oh my god, gas was just um even now, I kind of went off the rails a few days ago. I had some broccoli and cauliflower, and it was only just not even a handful. It was a tiny amount. The next day the gas was just going off. Yeah, it was not fun for the people around me. Yeah.
Really, just
Oh
that
yeah.
little bit is all it took to get the gas going again, huh?
Yep. Basically. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there was a couple of dishes that we had that had some sesame seeds and sesame oils, duck food sort of thing, and it just, just it didn't sit well with me. Put it that way. No. Um.
That's pretty bad. It's pretty bad when that little bit is all it takes. Because the thing is, I mean, at this point, if I run low on meat, I can still eat some fruit from my yard if that's all I have. And I don't
Yeah.
have a gas problem. The fruit doesn't
Mm.
bother me. It just seems like it's the leaves and the stems. Like you said, the broccoli, the
Right.
cauliflower,
Yeah.
any of that stuff, it does not agree with me. And, it's been a while, but the only way I could eat broccoli and cauliflower with any kind of ability would be to mix it with ground meat. If I cook them with ground meat, then it's fine. There's no problem. But to eat it by itself, especially if it's steamed, oh, it's bad. And like
Yeah.
you said, the pressure, you get like there's a pain like in the lower part of your abdomen that I get. And it's like it feels like you're inflating. It's like
Yeah.
somebody is
Yeah.
pumping air in there, and it's bad. And then you have to find the right way to sit so you can release the gas. And the bad thing is, if you're inside of a building, let's say you're in a seminar or something, or you're in an office, and you're inside of a building, you're trying to find a place where you can let that gas go. And it is, you know, you don't want to do it in the office because believe me, you're going to be the bad guy. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And to think that I was eating this way for, yeah, I mean, not specifically vegan or vegetarian, but eating broccoli and all sorts of vegetables before, and thinking that it was normal to be gassy. It's crazy to me now.
Well, it's
Crazy.
like I remember my dad, who was very much into the vegetables and so on. He used to call his diet the modified vegetarian diet. He ate some meat, but he wouldn't eat red meat very often. Usually he'd have fish. So I guess more like a pescatarian diet. But
Yeah.
always, there were two things about him. My mom and dad slept in separate rooms because my dad would snore like a chainsaw and produce gas like a biogas digester. I mean, all night you hear, and then, I mean, it's terrible. I my room was next to his room. I'd have to shut the door because you'd hear it all night. I mean, what is that? I mean, how can And I always thought that was healthy. If your
Yeah,
food
that's
tastes
right. Yeah.
bad, yeah, it's got to be good for you. If it tastes bad, and then you produce a gas, oh, the gas is good for you. Okay, well, but you know, but I'll tell you the other bad thing is that even when you don't have diarrhea, I remember on the vegetarian diet, you get enough gas in that system, and you got to go to the bathroom. When you feel like you have to go to the bathroom, you have 5 minutes. If you don't get to that toilet in 5 minutes, let me tell you, you're in a world of hurt. But
Mm-hmm.
on the
Mm-hmm.
carnivore diet, if I have to go to the bathroom, let's say I'm working, I feel like I might have to go to the bathroom. I can wait 3 or 4 hours, and I'm not under pressure. So when I
Mm-hmm.
have the opportunity, I can go. I do go at least once a day. But that vegetarian diet, I mean, it's deadly. It's just, you got that thing building up. It's like a nuclear bomb ready to go off.
Ah. Right. And you said you did 7 months of it.
I did 7 months vegetarian. And
I'm
like I said, for
surprised,
the
man.
first 3 months, it was great. First 3 months, I felt fantastic. But after that, it was just worse and worse and worse. Between the diarrhea and the gas. I think one time I had straight diarrhea for 2 weeks. It was like every time I had to go was diarrhea. I was going 4 times a day. And and it was really bad because if I was in an office, I had to make sure there was a toilet nearby.
Mm.
And some of these offices they have a key for the toilet. So what I'd do, I'd get a hold of the key and I'd take an imprint and make a copy, so I don't have to keep running back to the security office to get a key. I just go in there because, man, when you got to go, you got to go. And I had one time I
Mm,
couldn't get into the building. I had to go in the bushes behind the office. So I'm sure whoever was the gardener, they had a nasty surprise because we had an office building near a lake, and I went into the bushes. They probably thought, man, that's a big duck that did that. But it was so embarrassing. It's so bad. It's like, wow, I could I'm so glad I don't have to go through that anymore.
yeah, yeah, man. But that's funny, huh? Everyone especially in the carnivore community who's done, a period of, I guess, veganism or vegetarianism, all say the same thing. And I mean, Nicole right now, who's watching right now, when I interviewed her on my channel, she was saying she did a bit of veganism. I think she was vegan for some time, yeah, for 4 years. And yeah, the bloating and the abdominal discomfort was a very common thing. So it's very interesting that
Did
you
you
know.
see the video I just made making fun of vegetarians with the juicer and the Vitamix?
No, I did not. Is that recent?
Oh, you got to see that. I had an idea. I have several of these. I collect these things. My dad had a juicer, but I don't know whatever happened to it. But when I clean out houses, I know a lot of people, they try to get on the health kick and they have juicers and blenders and all that. So I went out in my yard. I said, "Oh, this is Rick the vegan," and I got a bunch of leaves and whatever I could find and jammed it in the juicer and clogged it up. There was this nasty green pulp that came out. It's really disgusting. And I was pretending like I was drinking it, vomiting it up. And I just thought, man, I remember when my dad used to make juice and he'd give me these juices to drink. Oh, it's good for you. And I remember trying to, oh, I had to force myself to swallow that stuff. And a couple times I swallowed it, and like a minute later, it started coming up, and I had to throw it up, and I'd run outside and bleh, it was just, and I thought to myself, man, how can this be good for you? It's so nasty. I mean, why do we put ourselves through that?
Right. It's crazy, crazy stuff, huh? I mean, yeah, our ancestors had these blenders, and would go foraging for leaves and blend it all and chug that down for the nutrients. I'm sure that's what they did.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's funny because when I started on the diet, I remember my dad was telling me about the benefits of vegetables. And I thought, well, does that mean I can just go out in my yard and pick any leaf and berry and whatever and eat it and I'll be
Yeah.
fine, right? Well, no, because anyone that does gardening knows that 99% of what's out there you wouldn't want to put in your mouth, or at least 95% of it. If you had a tomato patch, you're not going to eat green tomatoes, you're not going to eat tomato leaves, you're not going to eat
No.
roots.
No.
I mean, even if you have lettuce, yeah, you might eat the lettuce leaves, but you're not going to eat the grass growing around it.
Oh, hell
And the
no.
thing
No.
is, even though these plants won't necessarily poison you, what good are they going to do? It's like that juicer. You're jamming all that crap in there, and most of it is coming out as fiber. You can't digest that.
No.
And then
No.
all the people I know that are vegetarian, they're always doing these tremendous poops. So they're constantly eating. So they're just turning their body into a blender. So I used to
That's it.
joke. I said, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it externally. What I'm going to do, I'll feed it to an animal. The animal will then convert it into milk or meat or whatever, and then I'll eat it secondhand. Why am I going to load myself up with all this nasty mulch and try to swallow it? It's just going to come out the other end. What's the point? Oh, the
Basic.
fiber. You need the fiber to keep you regular. Yeah, but if I don't eat the fiber, I'm not going to have to poop it out. So what's the benefit? I don't see it. Well, you need fiber so you can make a stool. Okay, well, maybe I won't eat the fiber and I won't have to, make that much of a stool. I don't know. I don't even know why they call it a stool. It's so silly. I mean, it's poop. Why would they call it a stool? Is that
Yeah.
like a third leg that you're sitting on? It's just comical.
Yeah. And obviously in 40 years, Rick, you probably haven't passed the stool as well, right?
Oh, of course not. I don't even know
No.
what a bathroom is. I only go once a
No.
day, so I don't.
Except for the 7 months that you played around a bit. Yeah, of course,
Well,
that's the only time you.
in that case, if I didn't have a toilet nearby, I used to keep toilet paper in my car or truck, because that and a water bottle. Because
Mm,
if you have to go, you go in one of these nasty bathrooms back then when they had restrooms in the gas station or one of those rest stops, they're never going to have toilet paper. And then, of course, if you
Mm.
can't find a restroom, you're going to be on the side of the road in a ditch,
Yeah.
dropping anchor. And you better I use a squirt bottle to wash the mess off, and then paper towels to clean it up. It's I don't even want to think about it. It's terrible. It's disgusting. But that's what you have to do. And if you think about it, it's just like a duck. A duck eats everything. They eat anything from plants to meat or whatever. And every 15 minutes, what does a duck do? And what comes out of a duck? It's all runny and nasty. So it's like, yeah, you want to eat
Yeah.
like a duck, you're going to poop like a duck.
Yeah. Oh man. So I got a question, Rick. Over the last 40 years, apart from you said you had, a few, of course, the flu, you've had, colds and stuff like that. Have you had any health issues that you've needed to see the doctor about? Like any,
I haven't been to a doctor since 1996. I had the doctor lecturing me about how bad my diet was and how high my cholesterol was,
yeah,
and my blood pressure was too low, and I was going to have a stroke or heart attack. And then my doctor was a fatty. He was probably 40 something, and he had a big, I mean, his stomach stuck way out. I think his waist was double the size of his upper body. It was pretty sad. And I finally said, this, I'm not going to come back. I just got
mm,
frustrated with the doctor. But no, the only thing I get the flu probably twice a year, maybe a cold.
mm,
It's
mm,
like
mm.
this year I caught COVID. It was like a cold. I've had COVID at least 3 times.
Right.
And sometimes I'll get a digestive issue and get one of those stomach viruses, and I'll get some diarrhea and maybe some gas. But that's maybe once a year, maybe not even
Yeah.
that. And no, I mean, I've never been in a hospital. I've never had to get any kind of operation or treatment or anything. Now, I do have a hernia that I got from a car accident, but it
Mm.
doesn't really bother me. If it pops out, I just push it in. One of these days,
Yeah.
I'm going to have
Push it
to
back
get
in.
that fixed. But the
Yeah.
thing is, I don't want to, I'm afraid of the hospital. And what scares me the most is that they're going to shove duck food in my mouth. I mean, my mom and dad were in the hospital for a while, and I visited friends in the hospital, and that nasty duck food, it's terrible.
Oh
There
man.
might be a piece of somewhat edible meat, but the rest of it is just rice and veggies and nasty stuff. And I know a lot of times people don't eat it. I'd collect the leftovers, take it out to the ducks, and half the time even they
Mm,
wouldn't eat it. So
mm, mm.
that's my biggest fear, being stuck in a hospital and fed garbage.
Yeah. 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 You definitely don't want to be stuck in a hospital. Coming from someone who works in a hospital and seeing the food that comes out in the trays. But I think nowadays you've got a bit more flexibility. I've heard of some hospitals, that cater to people who eat a fairly meat-based diet, but that's, very, you know, there's not many that I would consider that would even provide you with that option. Hmm.
Yeah, with the
Um,
money they charge, they ought to be serving ribeye steak every day.
I know, right? Right? Ribeye steaks, at least a decent omelet or a decent, decent bacon and eggs. I know in where I work right now, they have bacon and eggs once a week, and I, I question why can't they have it every day? There should be an everyday option.
Well, the funny thing is that I know from my experience, when you're cooking meat, there's so little waste. It almost seems like it'd be cheaper instead of
Yeah.
buying them crappy prepackaged meals that somebody's making a profit on. Just buy a bunch of meat, grind it up, make a stew, have a big pot of the stew, and just serve it out to everybody. I mean, it couldn't be
Right?
that difficult to do. I mean, even if you're going to put some plant foods in, even if you put tomatoes in it, what's the
Yeah.
big deal? But at least serve a bunch of meat, and then maybe some steak, or maybe chicken. You could have
Mm,
boiled chicken or fried chicken in lard. Something. It can't be that expensive, because in
mm,
my own kitchen, up until about a year ago, about 2 years ago, I was eating cheaper than anybody else. It was costing me half of what it cost all my friends to eat, and my
mm.
shopping was so quick. I go right into the grocery store, right to the back, get the meat that's on special, buy a bunch of it, put it in the freezer in the refrigerator. I have food that can last me for a week or more. It eliminates the shopping trips, and it
Yeah.
tastes great. You never get tired of it. It's like, I mean, what is so difficult about that? Instead, they got to have all this manufactured crap with a bunch of grains and a bunch of duck food and everything mixed together. And
Mm,
what's the point? Then the fruits and veggies. Veggies don't last.
No, they don't.
You go to the dumpster behind a grocery store, and I admit I do pick the dumpster because I eat some dumpster food myself, and some of it goes to the ducks. And what do you normally see in the dumpster? Vegetables and fruits. Vegetables and fruits. Very rarely do you see meat in the dumpster because
Mm,
it doesn't go bad that quickly. So you'd think in a hospital, if they wanted to save money, even in a school cafeteria or something. I know when I was a kid, they used to make a lot of meat stews, and then they switched to that carbohydrate-based crap with the tater tots and
yeah,
all
yeah.
the other crackers and all this
Mm,
other nonsense. But yeah, you'd think that the meat would be so easy. It's simple to cook. You don't require a lot of training. I mean, you don't need a chef. You just have a pot with the right heat. You throw the meat in there, maybe add a couple of spices, and you're done. And if you're
that's
going to
it.
make steaks, it's even easier. Just have a grill or griddle and set up the steaks and cook them up, and that's it. It's so
Mm, mm, mm,
simple.
it is very simple, and I tell people that all the time. I ever since going carnivore 2 years ago, I've probably had very minimal food wastage, um, and just the convenience of not needing to cook 3 times a day or needing to think of food, every 2 or 3 hours, has just made it very easy. And when you cut out the list of ingredients that you need to be, cooking out a dish, it makes it even more simple because hey, all I need right now is a a cast iron pan. Give me a steak, slap it on there, and you're good to go. That easy.
It's
So
very
yeah.
simple and very straightforward, and there's just very little waste. So I don't understand why they continue to insist on all this processed garbage.
Mm,
I don't see the point. I mean, what's the thing?
no.
And the veggies and fruits, yeah, they're great in season if you have them handy, but
Yeah.
to grow all this vegetable matter, ship it around the world, how much of it gets wasted? How much
Oh
fruit and
yeah.
vegetables gets thrown out? Go to any produce wholesaler and you see the dumpster full of fruits and vegetables. It's really sad.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It is very sad. Um, and have you ever tried growing your own vegetables and
Oh, I'm
your
I'm an
crops?
avid gardener. I grow fruits
Yeah.
to this day. I
Yeah.
grow fruits and vegetables. I have tomatoes, I have bananas, I have
Mm,
mangoes, avocados, all kinds of fruits and vegetables. And
mm,
I'm constantly giving them away to my friends. I'm one of the most
mm.
popular guys, especially with a couple of the vegans I know. They
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
line up for my bananas. I got the best bananas in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I grow, or I used to grow quite a lot of fruits and vegetables, bananas, and tomatoes, and I did a lot of root vegetables as well. But if I was to say that I could sustain myself with with my the things that I grew from the garden, that would be a lie. I just couldn't. You know, it wouldn't even the little patches that I have of veggies growing would not even sustain me for, I would even say, a week.
That's the
Just
problem. Unless
yeah,
you have a really big piece of property and you're a really good gardener, you could never grow enough to survive on. It's just not physically possible.
yeah. And so I guess the point where I'm going with this is, for people who say, well, if you source your own, if you you know have your own sustainable system at home, you'll be able to uh sustain a plant-based diet, is something I've heard you know uh, quite some time ago. It just it's very difficult to do so. I've found that for myself very challenging. Yeah.
Let me tell you a little something about garden. The only way
Mm,
I can grow a garden here with our poor soil is to have animals, and I use ducks. So if you're going
mm,
to have your own garden, you need some kind of animals. Otherwise, you're going to have to constantly be putting fertilizer, and then you have the insect problem. You have to use pesticides. But if you have chickens or
yes.
ducks, that makes your garden a lot easier. And it's the same thing with anything else. You cannot have a sustainable vegetable and fruit garden without animals. It's just
Right.
not possible. You
Mm,
need the animals.
mm, mm, mm. And the thing is too, yeah, when you don't have the animals, the amount of insecticides and pesticides that you would have to use, because man, I don't know, maybe it's just me and my luck with it, but uh you know, tomatoes I find very difficult growing without having to use some sort of insecticide.
Well,
Um,
you probably had the tomato hornworms, those big green caterpillars,
yeah,
and they'll
yes,
devastate they'll
yeah,
devastate your tomato patch. But if you have
yeah,
ducks, when the duck sees that delicious hornworm, they zoom in on it and they grab it. So
yeah,
what I'll
yeah,
do, I'll go in the tomato patch. If I see any damage, I'll grab the hornworm and throw it to the ducks, and they grab it. And then once they know they're there, they start looking around. They're good at finding them, so they
yeah.
will eat. I mean, of course, if the ducks get hungry enough, they'll eat the tomato plants
Mm.
also. But they go for the bugs first. And I had June bugs in my garden, and it was destroying everything. Those June bugs will eat anything. They were even eating banana leaves. And the ducks, they ate every June bug in the garden. The snails were terrible. The ducks
Yeah.
ate the snails. So, I mean, I go in my yard now, there's hardly any insects. There's hardly even any flies. You throw out
Mm.
some rotten food, you don't see that many flies because the ducks, they're like a vacuum cleaner. When
Yeah.
they see something move, they eat it. The cockroaches, everything.
Mm-mm.
And I have a friend that tried to start a tomato patch, and let me tell you, he's had tomato viruses, he's had insects, he's had all these problems. He comes into my tomato patch, there's big tomatoes all over the place. How do you do it? I said it's very simple. I pick off the bugs and I have my ducks do the rest, and that's it. And the fertilizer, what goes in the duck comes out the other end.
That's
So
it.
that's the other thing. And when there used to be cattle, they had cow pastures around here. They used to actually collect banana leaves and other yard waste to feed to the cattle. So instead of having to take that yard waste to the landfill, they were feeding it to the animals. So,
Mm.
I mean, some plants they can't eat because they're toxic, but plants that are edible, they would eat and they would convert it into cow poop, which goes right back into the ground. So,
Mm.
again, if you want to have a sustainable garden, I know people that have even done aquaculture where they have
Mm.
fish and then they have like the waste from the garden they goes into the fish tank, the fish eat, they poop, and that goes back into the garden. So the only way that you can get really efficient composting without a lot of technology is to have animals. And I'm
Right.
sure in a lot of third world countries they have chickens and goats and other animals,
Oh
and they
yeah.
feed them whatever's left over, and then it goes back into the garden.
That's it. That's it. Hey, Rick. So I'm going to change topic a little bit and go back into sort of your journey into carnivore. Now, later down the track, you said is when you started to hear more about it and finally come along on YouTube and started speaking on about it. But at what point did that happen? When did you start to actually make contact with people online or you know people locally? How did find that you know uh I guess introduction into the sort of community, if you want to put it that way?
When we had the COVID thing in 2020,
Mm,
I was kind of stuck in the house, and my mom had just died. So I was spending more time online. I really wasn't going online much. I
mm,
had done YouTube years ago, but I had problems, controversies, and stuff. So I got away from it, and
mm,
I wasn't really going online much. But then when I started going online, you know, I don't know what I was originally looking for, but I remember seeing that fruity doctor, the Paul Saladino, the one that's always going without his shirt. And at
yeah,
that
yeah,
time, he was talking about carnivore diet. And there was another guy on there that I remember called Butter Bob Briggs. And he
yeah,
was always saying that butter makes your pants fall off and bacon and eggs and all that. So I started to look, and I remember it was Paul Saladino was the first one I saw. And then they're talking about a carnivore diet. He called himself Carnivore MD. And I'm looking at it, I go, okay, I eat like that. All right. So I started looking on there for carnivore videos. And I think the next one I saw was Sean Baker, who's
mm,
about my height and big old, muscles. And thinking, man, this guy he's big and he's on the same diet that I am. And then I started looking. I think the next one I noticed was probably Anthony Chafee, which was, I think, the first one I actually was able to communicate with. And that was, I
yeah.
think, in 2021. And then later on, I noticed that there was that Joey Schwartz that had his carnivore channel, and then
Right.
I started seeing him
Mm.
interview a lot of people, and he was the first one. I commented on a couple of his videos. He says, "Oh, would you like to go on and have an interview?" I thought, I don't know. And then I thought about it. I emailed him and said, "Yeah, why not?" So and then what happened was when we had the interview, there was just people popping on one after the other. Pretty soon there's
Mm.
200,000 or more people watching this video. I was like, wow, I can't believe that so many people wanted to see my story about my diet. And then, well, that's what happened. It's like, okay. So from then on, I started following these channels, and that's what's been happening ever since.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Uh, I think the first video I watched of you online was with Professor Bart K. That was when I first saw you, in the YouTubes. But ever since then, you've been quite active in, you know, in commenting on videos and appearing in many channels. Um, how has the sense of community changed? I guess has it changed your way of looking at things, or has it changed your perspective a little bit on this way of eating?
Well, my perspective on eating is pretty set, but what it has changed is the way that I view other people. I
Mm,
never really noticed it, but now that I have understood what this diet does for people, I can see the differences between me and others. And although
mm,
I do have my detractors that will message me telling me that I look unhealthy because my eyes are dark, I keep
mm,
trying to tell them it's the light, it's the shadows in here. But the way that I feel is just drastically different than anybody else my age. I'm the only
mm,
one that doesn't have any chronic aches or pains. I have lots of energy and I can do so many things. I mean, for somebody that's 55, I challenge anyone to see who else has as much dark hair as I do. I
mm,
mean, I don't have really any gray hair. The only gray hairs I may have is here. I haven't been able to shave yet, and stuff grows so fast that sometimes if I don't keep on it, it'll just come out. And but compared to other people my age, it's like night and day. And
oh man.
people that I used to know that were very healthy and fit in their 20s and 30s, now they tend to be overweight and they have all these health issues. So I never really gave it a second thought. It's just I ate this way because it was convenient and I got used to it. But now that I see other people, I go to the grocery store, I see what they put in their cart. I drive down the road, I see people lined up at the drive-through. It's just I look at the world in a whole different way, and I get all these
Mm,
advertisements, even here on YouTube, for things like Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A and all these other places, and I just can't imagine why anybody would want to eat there. And then all
right.
these energy drinks, and you see a lot of ads for food products and medications, and to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's just I'm not affected by advertising anyway. I like what I like. I have my own taste. It doesn't seem to change much, but my view on the world has definitely changed. And I've seen all these people that have started off obese and with health problems and so on. I mean, it just I can't believe it. I mean, look at the guy that's real popular now, Carrie from the Carnivore. What is it? Homestead How?
Oh yes,
It
yeah,
was
yeah,
only months ago that he was overweight. Look at him now.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
he looks so lean and looks so good. It's amazing. I mean, this guy is early 40s, and how where does this happen? What other lifestyle has this drastic change? And then you look at
Exactly.
the influencers like Dr. Chafee and Dr. Baker and so on, and you look at how they look. Even there's other people out there. There's a few other carnivore doctors that I've seen and carnivore influencers. I've even seen fitness influencers that were on the regular higher carb diet and they switched to a keto or carnivore diet. You have Dr. Barry, who I've never been able to communicate with, and look at the improvement that he's made. And he has
Mm,
a
mm,
couple people I know that are his fans. It just keeps going on and on and on. And I'm
mm.
sure there's people out there that have failed on the carnivore diet, but I haven't seen that many experiences yet.
No,
So
no, I
it's
haven't.
mind-boggling.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't actually seen anyone that's failed on a carnivore diet. I haven't really seen anyone that is, I mean, I see it online in, sort of what do you call it, Facebook groups or threads that people say, they experience this and this and this, they experience uh constipation or diarrhea or feeling of fatigue. uh but again, there's not much to go off that information alone. But for people who've done the carnivore diet, say for months on end, uh, I've not seen anyone who's actually failed on this diet. But I could be wrong. Could be people out there. Um, so yeah. Mm.
Well, one thing that I have determined lately is that the carnivore diet differs in one main way from the vegetarian or vegan diet, and that's there's not as much money to be made in this diet. You know,
No.
you can't. You could make a bunch of plant slop into something that tastes somewhat edible and make money
Mm.
off of it. I mean, think about Beyond Meat. Who would eat that garbage? I
Oh,
remember
hell no.
somebody I know got an
Mm.
Impossible Whopper because his girlfriend wanted him to try it, and he took a bite out of it. It was disgusting, and he
Mm.
threw it to the ducks. The ducks ate the bread, the lettuce, the tomato, no problem. But the patty, they barely touched it.
Mm. Mm.
And I've had some vegan foods that I found in clean outs that I did. I mean, you can see I had a video on that nasty Loma Linda fried chick, which is supposed to be a chicken substitute. The stuff was so disgusting it bounced on the ground. Even a duck wouldn't eat it. And it just it's amazing the stuff that they have, and they charge more money. All these fake meats cost more than real meat.
Mm. Mm.
So there's just no money to be made in this. I guess the only way that they could popularize it is if they offered some services or books or whatever. But and you can see that industry is not getting behind the carnivore trend. Now the keto
No,
trend they've been able to use because they can still use plant slop to make keto products.
that's right.
And I could,
Mm.
I've known some people that have tried the keto diet. And the other thing that's nice about the keto diet is eventually most people will give up on it because once they've had the taste that they're used to, they'll go back to the regular stuff. And that seems to be a problem. And again, you can still have all the recipes, all the ingredients. So with the keto diet, you can commercialize it. But with the carnivore
Mm.
diet, it's basically just meat and maybe salt and maybe a little bit of plant matter. So
Yeah,
if you're going to eat the
just doesn't
carnivore
sell.
diet, yeah, there's no money to be made in it. So I think that's one of the things that I've noticed lately. And you know, those of us that are in the carnivore space, we do it more of a public service than anything else. And
Yeah,
because the food industry is not going to do the research on it, they're not going to fund something that's going to put them out of business. So it's
no,
really up to us to do it ourselves and see
that's
what
it.
happens. And the
Yeah.
more people that put YouTube channels and put their example out there, the more people are going to look at it and they're going to say, hey, maybe I want to try this. And I think that's why I got more active. And I think that's why a lot of people have gotten active because they can see it. They've done it themselves or it's somebody else they know has done it. And the benefits are there and they just can't keep quiet.
Mm. Mm. That's you've hit it spot on, Rick. I the reason why I went on YouTube in the first place was exactly what you said, is just to spread the message, and no one else could do that. In Sorry, let me rephrase that. There's no governments or any organizations that are going to push this message, I think anyway, that meat is good for you. It just is. You're right. There's no money into it, and with all the, I guess, I don't want to call it research, but all the information that we've been told in the past of the so-called research by Ansel Keys, and all these scientists that say meat is bad for you, it causes heart disease. Uh, you know, uh, that's where the money is being made, and unfortunately, that's not going to stop anytime soon. And so, when I started YouTube, it was for fun, but also just to at least reach out to one person. Like, I don't have a large amount of subscribers. I don't have a large amount of people that view my channel. But if I could reach out to one person, I'm happy. I'm happy. And even more so, I think it's important for us like-minded people just to be connected and to share this sort of sentiment that we just need to get this message out there. Um, and I've never ever felt the sense of community uh, like this ever. I think it's just so interesting that, sorry, that people can come from different walks of life, different places around the world, and do things like this. I mean, you're in Florida right now. I'm in, Australia, and we're having this conversation. I don't, talking about meat. I've, I've never really experienced something like this ever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm kind of an old-fashioned person myself. I still use a rotary phone. In fact, well, this was not a rotary phone, but this is the kind of phone that I use.
Mm.
You know, I like old things. I made my house to look old. I there's certain things that I like, but when it comes to the lifestyle, I'm when you're an outlier and you're different than the average person, you're going to be more likely to try things that other people would view as just ridiculous. I
Mm.
mean, the fact that you're eating a meat-based diet, that's ridiculous, especially when they've been telling you for decades how bad fat is and meat is bad for you and so on. So
Mm.
when you meet other people that think like you do, then you have something in common. Because now it's almost like a worldwide brother or sisterhood. You say, you know what? Yeah, I eat like that too, and then this is what it does for me. So you can relate. And it's like a lot of times when people get together, what's the first thing that they say? Oh, let's go eat. Let's
Yeah.
have something to eat. So food is a very important thing. Now, obviously, alcohol and other things are other ways that people use to socialize. But for those of us that don't drink alcohol, food is the way. And if you think about it, if you're going to eat the same kind of food, wouldn't that be the kind of person you'd want to invite over? So you're not
Mm.
going to have like a bake off where you have a bake sale, but the carnivores are going to have a grill or they're going to have
That's
a
it.
fryer or something like that. And so we're going to come over, we're going to have a backyard barbecue and we're going to eat steak or we're going to eat chicken or whatever. And, so it's something in common. So if you can't get together physically, you can always get together using technology. And again,
Mm.
even though I use a rotary phone, I'm still using technology. All these things that you see around here still go through the internet. Of course, when the internet doesn't work, I can't communicate. But
Mm.
when it comes down to it, yeah, the technology connects us together. I mean, I live in Miami. I don't know any other carnivores. The only person I know that tried carnivore, he tried too late and died. The only other carnivore I know is up in Minnesota. So I don't know any other carnivores. I know people that'll eat meat, but I don't know anyone that's as extreme as I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the same too. I mean, I think slowly people are catching on to it, and I know a handful of people who are starting to do the diet now, which is good. I mean, personally anyway. Um, but yeah, it's slowly getting there. I think it's slowly catching waves, and it will get there in due time. But Rick, I think I'm going to have to uh, call time here because yeah, we I think we'll cap it at that. But I just want to say, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and you know, it's been great getting to know you a little bit more in person, seeing you on the live. Um, oh, I've got here. Hang on, I just want to show a comment here. So I've got shocking Brad, North Carolina here. So, uh, hang on, I'll unmute you. So, is that close by?
No, that's a few states up. I mean, that's north of Florida.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, well, nice to see you here, Brad. Nice to see you in the live. Um, but yeah, look, Rick, thank you again for coming on. For those who don't know you just yet, can you tell people your social media and what they can expect from your channel, and also, yeah, how people can contact you?
Well, I don't really do social media. I think the last time I did social media, I was on MySpace. So that shows how long it's been.
Yeah,
Um, I just do YouTube occasionally,
yeah,
and
you're on YouTube.
I've been
Yeah,
I'm doing a little bit more frequently. I mean, my
yeah,
YouTube channel is Charger Mopar, the 40-year carnivore. It's if you type in anything that says 40-year carnivore, you're going to find me. Even
yeah,
on Google, I've done Google searches on 40-year carnivore, and it links to my videos. There is only one 40-year carnivore that's been out there. I mean, there is Maggie White that's supposed to be carnivore longer than me, but she's not that active on
yeah,
YouTube. So I
yeah.
think she did one interview with Anthony
Chafee.
Chafee, and that's it.
Yeah,
So the only one that's I think making videos is me. And again, I'm unique because I'm one of the few that didn't start the diet as a way of improving health. I actually
yeah,
started the
that's
diet
right.
as to try to get bigger or get a heart attack. I figured go big or die. What are you going to do? You might as well. I knew other
Well,
people
that's
are
it.
using anabolic steroids, and I didn't want to take a chance with that. So I thought, hey, I'll do the next best thing. I'll just eat a bunch of meat. If I get bigger, hey, great. If not, eh. And I never put on the muscle. I'm skinny, but hey, at least I got tall, so it wasn't all a complete loss.
No, no, that's right. That's right. Well, awesome stuff, Rick. I'd love to do this again on the future. Get you back on the
Yeah,
live one
hopefully the
time.
next time I won't have an internet problem. And I don't know what happened today. Everything just went downhill when I started tearing this room apart trying to fix the internet problem, and I mixed everything up. So hopefully
No, it's
next
all good,
time I'll
man.
be set up something that makes sense. In
Yeah,
fact, I was just making a video about my primitive tech. I'm going to try to come up with a way of making it a better experience with better audio, better video, and so on.
yeah, yeah. Hey, man, it's all good. It's all good. We got there at the end of the day. Um, but yeah, any final messages that you want to say out to people? In particular, people who want to start carnivore diet.
Well, you know what? There's no time like the present. Don't waste your life. If you can try something different, maybe you've tried other things that didn't work. Why not try the carnivore diet? I tried the vegetarian and vegan diet. It didn't work for me. Hey, if it works for you, great. But if you're not getting what you need from the standard diet, vegan or vegetarian or whatever diet you're on, why not try the carnivore diet? What have you
Mm,
got to lose? A little bit of
that's it.
time, and who knows? You may gain a lot more than you think.
Mm, mm, mm. That's right. And there are hundreds of people saying that they're doing well on this diet. So, if not thousands, really.
I'm sure
So
it'll
yeah,
be more as time goes on.
yeah, that's it. That's it. And yeah, guys, you've heard it first right here from someone who's done the carnivore diet for 40 years, has not had any health issues apart from a few flus here and there, has not had a heart attack, um, has clearly, has not had any bloating or abdominal distress apart from the period where he dabbled into some fruits and veggies. you know it clearly works. It clearly does what it's supposed to do. It's how we're supposed to be eating. So yeah, thanks for your time again, Rick. Really appreciate your knowledge and wisdom. And yeah, guys, we'll see you on the next video.